Shadows Over, Liverpool, The Beatles. It was a foggy autumn evening in 1960 when Detective Inspector Edward Eddie Gray received an anonymous letter, its contents cryptic and unsettling. The letter hinted at secrets buried deep within the music scene of Liverpool, secrets that could explain the mysterious origins of a band that had recently begun to stir whispers in smoky pubs and dimly lit clubs. This band, known only as the Beatles, had an allure that defied explanation, and Eddie felt compelled to unravel their hidden beginnings. The letter was unsigned, but mentioned a lost meeting at the Cavern, a local venue known for its unpolished charm and wild gatherings. Eddie recalled that the Cavern had become the epicenter of a burgeoning musical movement, where musicians, dreamers, and revolutionaries came together under the haze of cigarette smoke and fervent ambition. The note promised that if Eddie could locate the remnants of that fateful night, he might piece together the mysterious formation of the Beatles. Eddie's investigation began with a visit to the Cavern Club. The establishment, though modernized over the years, still held echoes of its storied past. Eddie interviewed longtime patrons and retired staff who recalled a night when a group of young men, John, Paul, and George, had gathered in secret around a battered old jukebox, their eyes alight with an intensity that hinted at destiny. One elderly bartender, his voice low and tremulous, mentioned a shadowy figure who had watched them from the corner. "He wore a suit that didn't belong to this era, like he'd stepped out of another time," the man whispered. Some say he handed them a crumpled note with directions to a place called the Quarry before vanishing into the night. Intrigued, Eddie followed the trail to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Liverpool, known locally as the Quarry. The building, scarred by decades of neglect, seemed to breathe mystery. Inside, amidst layers of dust and cobwebs, Eddie discovered a set of old vinyl records, yellowed and fragile. Each record bore markings that didn't match any known cataloging system. Scribbled on the back cover of one record was a single phrase: "The twist of fate begins with a secret note." This, Eddie suspected, was the key. Late that night, as Eddie pored over his notes in a cramped office, his mind raced with connections. The Beatles, whose name itself was a play on words, a nod to both their unconventional approach to music and perhaps an even deeper secret, had formed under the guidance of forces unknown. The records he'd found hinted at clandestine meetings and coded messages embedded in the very fabric of their early songs. But how could these scraps of evidence be tied to the band's formation? Eddie recalled a tale from one of his informants, a former musician named Charlie, who'd once been part of the underground circuit. Charlie claimed that John Lennon, then a young rebel with a sharp wit, had met Paul McCartney under peculiar circumstances. "It wasn't chance," Charlie had said, voice hushed over a shared pint. "There was someone guiding them, a shadow pulling the strings. And when George Harrison joined, it was like the final piece of a puzzle falling into place." Eddie's curiosity deepened. Could it be that the formation of the Beatles was not a series of random events, but a meticulously orchestrated encounter influenced by forces beyond the ordinary? The following morning, Eddie revisited the Cavern with fresh determination. He spoke to an old photographer, one who had documented many of the club's early nights. The photographer described a scene that seemed almost cinematic: a mysterious man in an anachronistic suit approaching the trio as they huddled over a set of notebooks filled with scribbled lyrics and chord progressions. "He said something about destiny," the photographer recalled, "about how the music they'd create would change the world. I thought he was just another eccentric fan, but his eyes told me there was more at play." Piece by piece, Eddie began to construct a narrative. In the murky underbelly of Liverpool's vibrant music scene, three young men were converging at a crossroads of fate. Their meeting was not accidental, but had been orchestrated by a figure from the past, a figure whose intentions were as enigmatic as the coded messages on those ancient records. The cryptic note, the secret meeting at the Quarry, and the mysterious man in the suit all pointed to a hidden hand guiding the band's inception. One night, as Eddie sifted through old newspaper clippings and faded photographs in the dim light of his study, he noticed something peculiar. In a 1958 article about a local art exhibit, there was a photograph of a man who bore an uncanny resemblance to the shadowy figure described by the bartender and the photographer. The caption read simply, "Mr. A, patron of the arts." Could Mr. A be the puppeteer behind the formation of the Beatles? Determined to uncover Mr. A's identity, Eddie followed a trail of archival documents that led him to a defunct record label, rumored to have once dabbled in experimental sound projects. In the label's dusty archives, Eddie found letters and memos that mentioned a mysterious benefactor known only by the initial A. The documents hinted that this benefactor had a passion for avant-garde art and believed in the transformative power of music. Perhaps he had seen in Lennon, McCartney, and Harrison the potential to break free from conventional musical norms and usher in a revolution. Eddie's investigation reached a crescendo when he discovered a faded diary belonging to a woman named Cynthia, a friend of the early musicians. In it, she recounted late-night meetings at the Quarry, where a man in a crisp suit would share wild ideas about art, fate, and destiny. Cynthia wrote, "He spoke of music as the language of the universe, and that tonight, with the twist of our souls, a new era would begin." Her words, though cryptic, resonated with everything Eddie had uncovered. The mysterious Mr. A was not a villain, but a visionary, a secret mentor who had believed that these young men were destined for greatness. In the final piece of his puzzle, Eddie discovered an unsigned letter addressed to the Beatles, written in elegant, flowing script. The letter congratulated them on their future success and urged them to listen to the universe, twist your fate, and let the music flow. The handwriting, delicate and precise, was unmistakably the same as the notes in Cynthia's diary. By now, Eddie was convinced that the formation of the Beatles was the result of a series of orchestrated encounters, each one designed to bring together a trio of souls destined to revolutionize music. Mr. A, the enigmatic patron of the arts, had been the guiding force behind it all, planting seeds of inspiration in the fertile ground of Liverpool's creative underbelly. As Eddie closed the final page of his investigation, he realized that some mysteries, like the magic of music itself, were meant to remain partly shrouded in secrecy. The Beatles' origin was a tapestry woven from chance, destiny, and the whispered guidance of a man whose identity might never be fully revealed. Yet in that mystery lay the true power of their art, a force that transformed chaos into harmony and turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. Detective Inspector Edward Gray left his office that night with a newfound appreciation for the inexplicable intersections of fate and art. The story of the Beatles' formation was a mystery, yes, a puzzle that would forever tantalize those who sought to understand the hidden magic behind the music. And in the heart of Liverpool, the echoes of that secret night still played on, a timeless reminder that sometimes the most profound creations are born not of chance, but of mystery.